Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brian Kafke, and I'm excited to talk about advanced concepts in Python, things that will really lend themselves to data engineering, data analysis, and pretty much anything else that are not often talked about when you get into these regular introductory level courses. So I want to show you some cool stuff that you may not be aware of. But before I do, please consider supporting me on Patreon, where you get access to me, special content, and more. Link in the description. So let's jump in. The first thing I want to talk about as a crucial concept in Python is that functions are just another type of object. In fact, I want to call them first-class objects. What does that mean, Brian? What's the implications of that? What do I care? Well, you will care because this is not true in a lot of languages, and it means we can do a lot of really powerful things if we can leverage that one simple thing that functions are just objects. So let me demonstrate here. Got a Jupyter notebook, and you can get this for your very own. I'll leave a link in the description. But I'm going to create two functions. Function 1, which just prints a message, function 1 called. Function 2, which prints a message, function 2 called. Pretty straightforward. Then I'm going to create a third function, run functions, which take a function as a parameter, first parameter, and another function as the second parameter. And you guessed it, I'm going to pass in two functions, right? And then I'm going to run them to demonstrate just how powerful this is. Let's create these and then I'll demonstrate how this works. First, I'm creating my two functions. Then I'm creating the function that takes functions as parameters. And then I'm going to execute this run functions. But when I run it, I'm passing in function 1 and function 2 as parameters. And guess what? I'm going to be running those, right? Now, a key thing when you're running a function versus just wanting to see like what it is that we're putting parentheses after the function name. That's what we're doing there. So if we do this, wow, it worked. We see function 1 was called, function 2 was called. That's pretty cool. Still not into the true benefits of this, but it is pretty nifty that we can pass a function in to another function and it will do things with it. Let's try this a little differently. We're going to create an outer function and an inner function. This is a little weird, but very powerful. So let's start. We've got this outer function, get run functions, first and second. And the idea is we're going to pass functions in as those parameters. Then we're going to create an inner function, right? This function is scoped within the function of the outer function, this one. Hence it is indented, right? And in the inner function, we're just going to say print about to run the function. And we're going to call the function that was passed here, the first function. We're going to call the second function here. Then we'll print, we ran the functions. Great. But here's where it gets different. When we call this get run functions, that's our outer function, we're going to return a function. What? We're returning a function from a function? That's crazy talk. I know, it is kind of weird, but that's what we're doing. So we're returning this function as the output of our outer function. So that's what we're going to actually see when we use it. Let's create it. It's a little easier to see when it's demonstrated. So we've got that there, all good to go. We're going to say get run functions that we just created. Function 1, function 2 being passed in. We're going to store the result of that to f. Let's see what that result is. What are we going to get here? Well, nothing too much, but what is in f now? What do we get if we were to look at what's in f? We see, wow, it's a function. Pretty cool. What happens if I just say f all by itself? Well, we get the string representation of that function, which just tells us the function name basically and what's going in, the parameters, right? But if we use parentheses, we're going to execute the function. In this case, we can see function 1 called, function 2 called, ran the functions. A little subtlety here you may not have thought of is, well, wait a minute. How did it remember function 1 and function 2? I mean, that was in the outer call. Doesn't all state get cleared out of functions when they're done executing? I mean, that's the way I learned it back in the day. I mean, I can even run it now and it still remembers the functions. And bear in mind, let's go back and look at this because this is kind of interesting. I didn't pass any parameters into this inner function. I passed the parameters to my outer function. How did it remember these between calls? It got this returned back. Here's the secret. Here's the magic sauce here. Even though these were passed in the outer function, because they're used in an inner function that is returned, that inner function is now pointed to. It's referenced by your variable. And therefore, Python must retain the state behind it. It's kind of like when you think of garbage collection in other languages, like say Java or something. It can't get rid of it. It can't clear it away because you still are holding a reference to that function. And guess what? That function is holding a reference to these objects. So it's keeping them around. And that is where we can get some pretty cool functionality. Let's take a look at another use case similar to that, but to make it a little more explicit. This is where we can use functions to explicitly retain state. Wait, let me think about this. Functions are supposed to do their thing and go away. No state. That's the rules. Normally, that's true. Normally, you would create a class, right? You create a nice object-oriented class, and you create your properties and methods, and you can do instances, and you retain state. Functions don't normally do that, but Python functions can. So let's walk through another example. Outer function. We're going to pass a param, outer function, and then we're going to do a suggested thing here, hint that it's a string. Mind you, hints are ignored by Python. It doesn't enforce anything, but at least somebody reading it knows that my intention there is a string. I'm going to say print the outer param, and what I'm going to really do though is have this inner function, and that has an inner param. This function returns your outer param was outer param, right? And your inner param was inner param. Now, there's a few things here if you haven't seen this. This is a relatively new string formatting thing in Python. If you put an F before your string, you can just put braces around variables and it will expand those in the string for you automatically. Very cool. So we're going to be printing that message out, but we are getting an inner function, this one, as the return value of this function. So just like we saw before, my goal is to show you explicitly how state is being returned. So now I'm going to say x is equal to my outer function. That's my outer param I'm passing in. Again, let's take a look. Did it really do it? You can see here's a reference to my inner function. Now we can use that reference to call the inner function, because after all, that's what it's pointing to. And I'll call the parameter I'm passing in my inner param. And lo and behold, it says your outer param was my outer param. Your inner param was my inner param. What's my takeaway here? It kept this around. It kept it around because it needs to reference it in the inner function, and you have a reference to that inner function. But Brian, maybe outer param just exists in the global environment. Do you ever think of that? Well, let's see if it is available in the outer environment. It is not. The outer param variable only exists in the function scope, but that function is not going away anywhere because it's got a reference to it, right? So let's try it again. In theory, we should be able to pass in a new parameter to the inner function, but the outer parameter is already set. So here we go, and there it is. And we can see that my outer param is right here, and we were able to replace the inner param. Let's try another example. This example, we're going to say generate power, and we'll pass in the exponent to be used. Then we'll have an inner function called power, and we'll pass in that function a base. And that function returns base risen to the power of exponent, the initially set variable. And now we know that exponent is not going to go away, but we can keep changing what we pass into base. We're returning the inner function power. So just like we saw earlier, we're going to create an object reference here, raise_2. We're going to call our generate power function, pass in the parameter of 2. That's the exponent we will want to raise things to. And now we'll just call raise 2, and we'll pass in, for instance, first 2, then 4, then 1. And if we do that, we can see that it worked. It's actually given us this little exponentation calculator. Again, think about the implications of this, because it means we can store any number of things and yet have functions that allow us to pass parameters that change. At the same time, we have things that won't change. It's remembering. What else might we do with this? Let's try another example where we'll create an ongoing accumulator. I'm going to create a function called SumItemLengths, and I'll create a starting value, which is 0 by default. This is how you can define a default parameter to a function. In here, I will declare underscore hold values. I use underscore hold values, not just hold values, as a way to kind of make sure people don't accidentally trample on my variables. Not that they would, but it's a good way to kind of keep straight what's internal to your function and what is not. So that's why I did the underscore hold values, and I will initialize that to an empty list. Then I'll start my inner function. It's called increment. Increment takes a parameter called item. Now, hold values will exist by the time it gets into my inner function, because I declared it here, and I will append the item. But I want to accumulate the length of the items going in. How long is the total length of everything that's been added into this function? So I'm going to use the length function on item. This function, and what I will return, is the sum of everything in the hold values list, which is, of course, the length of the items. Now, this outer function is going to return my increment function. So that's how all the magic happens. So let's run that. I'm going to create a variable y, which is going to be equal to the result of SumItemLengths, meaning it will return my increment function. And just to see that it really did it, I do have a function there. First thing I'm going to pass in is y, and then in parentheses calling the function, right, Brian. I should get back the length of Brian, and that's 5. That is correct. Now in this case, I'm going to create a list of characters, A, B, C, D, right here. Let me create that, and then I'm going to pass that list into y, and now I get a total length of 9. Pretty cool. So it's tracking things. So far I've passed a string, I've passed a list, and now I'm going to pass a tuple. And this tuple has integers in it. So I'm going to first create my tuple of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to add that in, and I get a total length of 14. Now I'll just add in this integer. Crash! Oh no, what happened? Well, what happened is we got burned by the misuse of something called duct typing. It says right here with the problem, you're trying to do a length on an int, and you can't do that. Let's go back up to our original function. I'm saying append, that's not a problem, but then I'm doing a length on item. Well, guess what? Anything we pass in here must support the length function or method, and integers don't. You might think that's a mistake. Python should know better. It shouldn't do that. No, there's actually a very basic assumption in Python that is the programmer knows what they are doing, and Python will not try to be smarter than the programmer. So whatever the programmer says, it says, I'm going to let you do this. In this case, I'm saying I want to take the length of an item. That means that I have to make sure in my code I never pass anything into this function that doesn't have the ability to give back a length. This is called duct typing. It's used all over Python. It's critical to Python's functionality. It's the way it achieves polymorphism, among many other things. Many languages, like say Java, would use either classes or they could use interfaces as a way to accomplish a similar functionality. But that's a lot of work. And sometimes there's some common methods between classes in other languages, but it's hard to really reuse them because it will only allow you to pass certain types in. It has strict data typing. But with dynamic data typing, you can pass anything you want. It doesn't care. But you're responsible to make sure your code works. It's not Python's problem if you do it wrong. So that's duct typing. Now, the cool part is it lets us do something like I can make sure that as long as anything I pass into item supports this length method, I'm good to go. What if I created my own custom object? Could I just add a method to support length and it would work? Yes. What about other types of things in Python? Objects, classes, whatever. As long as they support length, will it work? Yeah. That's what happens. Python's not judging. It just says, if you got the method, I'll let it run. I'm not going to get in the way here. So when you are doing Python, one of the things you really need to understand is Python is going to let you do anything, but with great power comes great responsibility. And it will also let you kind of hose yourself. So you have to be careful there. All right, one last little demonstration. I want to show you how we can also use this idea of functions as first-class objects, or variables even, if you want to think of it that way. So here I'm creating a function list, right? And I'm just putting all those functions we created earlier, 1, 2, 3, into that list. You can see here, function list, there it is. And what I want to do here now is I'm just going to iterate over the function list and run the functions. And lo and behold, it worked. That may not seem very impressive, but imagine you're trying to build a data pipeline. And every column in the pipeline needs different types of transformation. You could do something like build a dictionary. And each column, as you go, you say, I'm looking at column 1, and I'm going to evaluate certain things about it. I'm going to build a list of transformations, just functions, right, to be used in column 1. So another one is like email. You got a certain types of transformations and edit checks you want to apply to email that wouldn't make sense for anything else. So you add those into the list that applies to email address. By doing something like this, you could actually have a custom set of transformations by column in your pipeline very easily. It's not even complicated. Just run your list through your code, done to go. Boom. That's the kind of thing you can do because Python is giving you this kind of flexibility. All right, let's step back and do the big takeaways part. Functions are first-class objects. They're just variables like anything else. Functions can be passed as arguments to other functions. We saw that over and over again, so that's pretty cool. Functions can be assigned to variables and even added to lists or tuples, and we saw that as well. Functions can be returned from functions. We saw that quite a bit, and it's a really nifty thing and kind of brings it all together as far as where the power comes from. Using nested functions, we can retain state. That's a little bit of an offshoot of all of this, but it's a very powerful thing as well because we're doing nesting functions, returning functions, but that ability to hold state, one function call to the next, is really useful. We can always do that with a class, but this gives us a very short, very simple way, and many times probably a lot easier for code readers to understand what you're doing, because if you keep it simple, it's going to be easier than defining lots of classes and all the things that go with that. That's it for this time. Please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. Thank you.